Hello everyone, hi from the world of place. My name is Folasiji Bomi-Daniels. I'm the CIO of the Kabzeel group, and this is episode 5 of our Secrets of the World of Place lessons from our 5-year journey. 5 years ago, my friends and I, we gathered together to save and essentially create what is now the Kabzeel investment community. We have the investment club, we have the cooperative, and we're launching the generations plan. And 5 years later, it has been an interesting journey, and we're here sharing some lessons. And one of the first we've done 4 episodes, so this is episode 5. One of the first lessons that we talked about was our own principles, our own models, and different things that we have lived by. We've talked about principle 70, we've talked about saving, we've talked about gratification. I remember one of the quotes that I've said over and over in this series is, if what is saved is not invested, then it is wasted. And last week, I talked about the supernatural in Kabzeel. Yes, if you've missed all of that episodes, please go ahead and catch up on that. The supernatural, it has been God who has helped us. We're about the King. That's why we're a kingdom community wealth center. And this episode, I'm talking about myself because in the journey towards wealth, one of the things that happen to you is that you get transformed in that process. And one of the first principles that we teach, the first lessons that we teach is having a wealth mindset. And I have, over the last 5 years, changed and become what we now call today the Aki farmers. Yes, so a few people call me the Aki farmer, and it has been as a result of the journey of the last 5 years. Now, as Folasiji, I'm an architect, permaculture designer, and many people know me as the Aki farmer. And so now to the background story. I remember growing up, my dad is an engineer, and my mom was an agriculture teacher. So I remember growing up, my dad wanted me to go in the direction of engineering. My mom was just there. She didn't push us in any particular direction. But I remember growing up reading our books a lot, a textbook. I remember reading about rabbitry, animal crops, and my love for agriculture was there. And as I decided to go into the university, thankfully I found architecture because that combined my love for nature with the engineering bit a bit. So I naturally did well. In fact, matter of fact, my final year thesis was the creation of the Rock City Riverside Resort, which today, as I look back at it, is a merger of many things that I'm currently doing, because it is architecture, it is nature, it is permaculture, even when I didn't know about it. So then 2020, we started our journey. If you've learned about it, you know how we started with grow your own food, how we started with the 4 acres, became 54 acres, and today we're launching a 1,000-acre Palm 2 project. Okay. And then, so part of my journey was in 2020, after COVID, I started practicing agriculture again, started planting vegetables. It was fun because, we're on lockdown, there's very little to do, and we had a vacant lot right in front of our property. Started, if you could get some pictures, it would be nice to see some of those pictures here. Started farming, and then towards the end of 2020, around November, I met with African farmer who, and credit to you, sir, who then told me, rather than coming to do something new in architecture, why don't you find your natural, unique drive, the blend between architecture and agriculture. So with that, I was able to find permaculture, designing architecture, and designing agriculture. And because of that, it led me into new vistas of thinking. I began to learn, I began to research, and I found that this was one of the things that I would like to do. And then in 2022, there was a training that came up that led to a training about permaculture in Nigeria, and I went and I naturally excelled. And because of that, I was then they created an association. I was then invited to lead that association. One of the lessons I'm sharing here is that in any wealth journey, it's not just what you have, it's who you become. So one of the core things we do currently at Kabzeel is essentially deploying finance into a key agricultural project, so real estate agriculture. I then met my oil palm mentor, Reverend Daniel, and Reverend Daniel blew my mind because prior to that time, we had just 4 acres of farmland, and we're doing good. And then he came and he said, if you're going to do agriculture, why don't you do long-term products, do commodities that will last, rather than things that you will just do now, you repeat now, and that's the end. Short-term crops are good, but it gave us potentials and the possibilities in long-term products. And because of that, we started oil palm. And then he said that if you're going to do oil palm, do a minimum of 50 acres. And it changed and radicalized our mindset. So from 4 acres, we started looking for 50 acres, and then we found 50 acres. But the lesson in that is, when I met him, it took me by hand to go and see some key stakeholders within the states that we're in. And then also, he then said that he started going to the farm in the 80s. And the year that he mentioned he started going to the farm was the year that I was born. You know what that means? He has my lifetime of existence as his lifetime of experience. So mentors are there to guide and position you, and so we have been able to ride on the wing of that. And because of that, right now we're creating one of its kind, a palm 2 permaculture city, where we are going to have 1,000 acres, 600 of them will be dedicated to oil palm. But I'll come to that. Before we got to this place, I was able now to pioneer new concepts that from the whole, there is a popular concept called land banking. Then because of my merger into the Aki Farmer, we came up with farm banking, and farm banking is an advantage, a slight advantage over land banking. What you do with land banking is you buy land, you keep it for the long time, and then you just wait. After, what we do when then say with farm banking is, when you buy land, people say with land banking, you do buy land and wait. What we say is, buy land, plant on the land, and then gain as you wait. So with farm banking, some people are going to invest in agricultural products and keep it for 20 years, when you could have planted things like oil palm, and it will be producing for you every year from the 4th year, and it will produce for the next 30 years. In fact, with oil palm, with cocoa, the Nigerian government recently just revalued the value of an hectare of cocoa from what it was before to 160 million. And this is a beautiful development for us, because those are one of the areas that we're going to be plugged in Palm 2. All right, as I begin to round off, I'll now talk about some of our projects. We then have the farm banking project in Epe. We have now the Palm 2 project. And one of the key lessons here is that in the midst of your journey, in over 5 years, I have grown from being a novice in the agricultural space and just being a bloody architect to now becoming the Aki farmer who understands the principle of architecture. I've been able to match that in the design of farms, farm cities. So currently, one of the things I do is essentially creating sustainable farm communities or sustainable farm cities. So if you look at sustainable or regenerative, that's permaculture. If you look at farm, that's agriculture. Cities and communities, architecture. And that is what we do. So our lesson today is, in the midst of your journey, ensure you are growing, you are becoming different, you are becoming better. So don't give up on that journey. Do not just gather to amass, but become something, because wealth is not just what you have, it is who you know, what you become in the journey as you go. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Tell me about your story, particularly members of the community. What has happened to you over the last 5 years? Secrets of a Wealthy Place. This is episode 5. We have 2 more episodes to go. In episode 6, we'll talk a little bit about the pains and gains of the journey thus far. We will declassify some of our portfolio, our assets, and then the final one, which is episode 7, we'll then round it up with some of our lessons, some of the journey. We'll probably have 1 or 2 persons share some of their own experiences also. But for now, thank you very much. I remain Folasiji Bomi-Daniels, the Aki Farmer. This has been how I became the Aki Farmer, lessons from our 5-year journey. Thank you so much. See you next time.